Rich Waitas, and I have Nick behind me, and today we have a 2007 Chevy Impala behind us, and this has one of those transverse V6s and an entire exhaust system that needs replacing. We have a BRExhaust Direct-Fit kit that's going to go on from everything downstream of the catalytic converter. So taking a look at the stock exhaust system, we've identified our catalytic converter, rear O2 sensor, rear catalytic converter, and our brake point, and this is where our BR Direct-Fit exhaust kit is going to start its installation. Note we've got some rubber isolators, we've got the resonator, and we're going to work our way around through the tubing here around the gas tank. We have another hanger here, and we're going to get around the suspension, and finally working through the muffler and ending with the tailpipe. One of the first things we'll do is get the area lubricated so that the nuts and bolts will come off. Sometimes this may not be as easy as removing a simple nut, and you may have to cut or use a torch to remove the seized nuts on rusted parts. Anytime we're removing a rubber isolator, it's a good idea to apply some lubricant to make the removal process a little easier. One thing to note is when you have a solid one-piece exhaust system, you can see that the aid of another person or a stand is necessary to remove the exhaust. Be careful when you're doing this, as the entire exhaust system is quite heavy and could cause damage. Depending on the vehicle, there will be an old flange located behind the catalytic converter. We recommend cleaning it thoroughly of all the existing rust or corrosion prior to the installation of the new kit. One of the things to make sure of is that none of the sealing surfaces have contaminants or residue from the previous gasket, which may not be from the factory. If you're going to use a power tool for cleaning the surface, just make sure you don't have an abrasive wheel and you're using something like this gasket remover type device. The BRExhaust Direct-Fit kit comes to you in a single box with everything you need to get the job done. Everything is protected from damage, and you will avoid the inconvenience of lost or missing parts. The kit includes all necessary gaskets, clamps, installation instructions, and bolt-on multi-piece design, which makes this kit so easy to install and assemble. Getting started with this bolt-on installation designed specifically for this vehicle means we're going to start from just behind the catalytic converter. Assemble the parts as instructed, connecting the BR exhaust system to the hangers and rubber mounts as you go. Be sure not to tighten anything down yet, as we'll have to do some final adjustments before we put the system in its final resting position. One thing to note is how easy a multi-piece design system is on installation. You don't have a one-piece exhaust system that's got to be cut and removed. In this case, you have multiple parts that make it easy so you can get around a crossbar or axle obstruction. With the kit fully assembled and loosely installed on the vehicle, we can now make final adjustments. Starting at the front, work your way to the rear to make sure that nothing gets in the way. We're going to want to make sure that if this happens to be a vehicle with a drive shaft or other moving parts such as suspension, that all the parts are free of the normal cycling of those parts. If you're noticing at all that the system doesn't appear to be fitting correctly, please make sure that the motor mounts are in good condition, as this will affect the front pipe position, which will affect the rest of the exhaust system. And additionally, making sure that the rubber isolators or hangers are not overextended, rotted, or have cracks or damage. In the event that either of these two things are present, it may affect the overall fitment of the exhaust system. So with the complete BRExhaust Direct-Fit exhaust system installed, you can see why the multi-fit system gives you some additional adjustability. If the hangers aren't fully intact and you have one that might be overstretched or torn, it still doesn't mean you won't be able to install it. Of course, we recommend that you replace the right part, but this gives you some adjustment at each of the points to make sure the system hangs nice and tight to the chassis. If the vehicle's also undergone any kind of an accident where you have bent parts that have been bent back, one of the things you can do again is use the multiple adjust points to make sure that any of the suspension parts that are not in factory position can be realigned and still allow for the installation. Ultimately, if you do see a problem where it just seems like it's hanging too low or the tailpipe isn't coming out where it is, one last place we tell you to check is all the way at the front where you have the motor mounts on a transverse motor. And if you're familiar with this chassis, you'll know that the motor mounts keep the motor moving front and back. And with a bad motor mount, that means that the system can be pushed up at the front or pushed down at the front, which means it can be 8 feet away, an entire inch to inch and a half off. From just one box, the multi-piece design of the BRExhaust Direct-Fit kit gets you on the road that quickly.